So try to get background noise to a minimum. Craig Lane, Health Alchemy YouTube channel, community dinner, March 12th, thank you. We bypassed Friday the 13th, thank God. I was worried. Does that happen once a year, Friday the 13th? Is that once a year? Several times a year?
It can happen more than, yeah, sorry. Yeah. I don't know how many, but it can happen more.
It depends how lucky you are.
There's a woman that watches these talks on YouTube and she looks forward to it. And so I think it's because there's lots of fun. It's just health can definitely be fun. And that's something that where we started, you know, what is health? Health means the same thing as yoga. It turns out in the root of the language, the root of the word is health means you're whole. You're here in the present moment. Yoga means the same thing. It's not some mystical thing. You're here. As one Zen master used to say, he said, pound this pole on the ground, unexcelled enlightenment. Boom! And he's pounding this thing on the ground. And my teacher, Adishanti's going, is the pole enlightenment? Is his hand? And he was pointing at this right now. Only this moment that just passed. And that's another moment. That's the only thing that's real. And so yoga and health is you're immersed in that. You're not identified with the future. You're not identified with the past. Thoughts might happen about the future. Thoughts might happen about the past, but consciousness is embedded in the present. And one of my teachers says the thread of presence is unbroken for him now. He'll see a fuse of trigger, but he doesn't go there anymore. He'll see a fuse of cortisol and stress, and he'll feel it in his being, but he doesn't identify with it anymore. And that's the point, is you have all the stuff of being human, but you're no longer, it doesn't run you. It's like the part of us that's used to be in the front seat gets put in the back. And that's a good place for the ego. Is it's a function that should not be running things, as the natives told Carl Jung that actually. So spring cleaning then, next weekend, next Saturday, there'll be a cleanse starting. And so what involves in the cleanse is over here, handy dandy chart. People often get confused about my cleanses, but they're actually very easy. There's one layer, you just look at a food chart. Okay, and it's like, you can have these proteins, you can have these carbs, you can have these fats, you can have these veggies, and there's a chart for that. And that's the easiest way to do the cleanse. Take your supplements, follow the food chart, and you can be on the group calls or not. Then there's a weekly routine that's a little bit tougher. It's a little narrower choices. So this is the widest amount of choices here. It's for the first timers. Then the weekly routine has a few more strict things and then there's daily challenges. So you can go down, hardest down here. Anybody remember the word austerities? Yeah, lots of austerities on the bottom. So a level 3 challenge would be a fast. A level 3 challenge would be not talking for a day or two. A level 3 challenge would be lie in bed all day and don't do anything. So the frequency, if we're talking about frequencies, we'll go to that in a second. Then the frequency slows down. See, the amplitude and the duration will slow down. Because I'm here to teach process. That's all I'm about. And we include chemistry in process. We don't throw out chemistry. So chemistry is a snapshot in time of a process. And we've come to worship the snapshots. In the Bible, they call it worshiping false idols. Chemistry is a false idol because it's lifeless. You can't make life from chemicals, but you can take chemicals from life. Valium comes from the plant valerian. Valium is dead. Valerian's alive. Aspirin comes from the willow tree. Willow's alive. Aspirin's dead. So the point is that we want to be alive, don't we? In the life process, not the death process that is being initiated. You haven't looked around recently? Yeah. You know, lots of death processes and dumbing down versus raising up. So if you want to do the cleanse tonight, we did some blood pressure readings last week, which was rather fun, you know, lying down and standing up. And if you know Daniel Pompa with systemic formulas, and he has the True Cellular Detox program. I read through his thing about sleep, Tammy. I was reading some sleep research today. And, you know, I'm going to say it on record. Daniel Pompa doesn't even get the Raglands test right. And he's like a billion-dollar practitioner. And one of our mutual colleagues, she didn't want to say it, but I did. She's like, I went to one of his workshops and no. And I go, Daniel Pompa is pompous? And she went, yeah, thanks for saying that, because I didn't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. he's pompous, and he's making claims when he's absolutely wrong about the Ragland's test. He's saying if it falls even 5 points, you have severe adrenal fatigue. And I've been doing these for 12 years. Falling 5 is nothing. Falling 30 is where you got trouble, not 5. Because it can be falling 5, and you can do it an hour later and do the same test and repeat it, and it won't be falling 5. So the Ragland's test we did last week, and this week we're going to do photographs of tongue. So if you want to get your tongue analyzed a little bit, we'll do that. Lastly, I got through that. James is going to take us through for 20 minutes on this history of the pharma cartel and whatever frequencies James wants to talk about. But so anybody ever study frequencies in college, science class?
Since college, but not during.
Okay. So there's all kinds of frequencies, right? I'm a frequency. You're a frequency. You're a frequency.
Yeah, everything is frequency.
So frequency has a sort of an amplitude, meaning, how strong it is. Like if you got a guitar, you got a, Jimi Hendrix would be like high amplitude, right? What's the low amplitude? James Taylor, right? James Taylor, low amplitude. And then duration. So you can have, here's my little black pen here. You can have a cycle that goes very quickly, right? Where the duration is very quick. Or you can have a cycle where the duration is more spread out. This would be every 1 second. That would be every 20 seconds, right? So like my duration, some people have slow duration bowels. Their frequency of their bowel peristalsis is very slow. Others have a duration that's very quick. I also happen to have a high amplitude bowel movement. The TMI, you guys. So you have a high amplitude bowel movement and a short duration. That makes for a lot of fun in the toilet. The toilet is definitely a friend. So I've been saying the word processes and actions the last few years, but then James came to me and said, frequencies. And I said, well, they're kind of the same thing. The actions of life, the frequencies of life, the actions, the processes of life. So spring cleaning then is a process of cleaning out. You're cleaning out some waste, you're transforming, and you're buffering your third and fourth health foundation. For those of you who are new, first health foundation involves your nervous system and endocrine system, how well you choose, how healthy is your chooser. And that ties in with your blood sugar as the physiological component. So if you're choosing too much carbohydrate, then you're going to have insulin levels and you'll be in a degenerative inflammatory spiral. And that's usually because the chooser is broken, right? And we become conscious of that, like, wow, I've been choosing, what's a good one? Been choosing that alcohol. I have these two clients. Okay, I'm not going to name any names, but they drink a bottle of wine each every night.
Whoa.
And I've known them for 20 years. And I've seen their children get raised, and they're awesome people. But I have seen 20-30-year weed smokers to excess, and I have seen drinkers 20 to 30 years to excess. Guess who's really messed up? The drinkers, not the weed smokers. Not even close. So it tells you something. I watched a guy on Quicksilver talk about alcohol is the worst source of leaky gut and leaky brain. When you have leaky gut, you also have leaky brain. They go hand in hand.
Oh, alcohol's the worst for the leaky gut.
Alcohol's the worst. And this is the Quicksilver guy. I forgot his name. Some of you know this guy.
So can you define?
He's with Quicksilver. Pardon?
Can you define what you mean by leaky brain?
We have a blood-brain barrier.
Okay.
And so when you stretch the balloon too taut, the thread count decreases and then stuff gets through. Same thing with the gut. When you stretch the lining of the gut too thin, then stuff starts to leak through. And this was proven, I've been talking about this for years. Enzyme nutrition, Edward Howell, they were doing studies on different types of foods and white blood cell response after meals. There's another frequency thing. So the more cooked food, the more refined food, the more wheat, and the more bad foods you eat, the higher was the white blood cell count post-meal, about an hour after. And they used to call it digestive leukocytosis, meaning a syndrome of elevated white blood cells after a meal. This was known 1960 and before. But guess what? Buried, like all the other good stuff, just buried. Because it's not convenient to have free and easy healthcare. Not convenient for the moneymakers in the capitalistic market. So I'm not a pusher of raw foodism either, because it doesn't work in our climate as well. If you live in Ecuador, sure, 100% raw might work. It must have been some chewing. And so I'm going to move on from that now. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm going to try and be a little quicker tonight. Maybe we'll get done by end of 10. So James, you want any intro after all I did? Or you just want to go start run with it now?
Oh, why don't I just run with it?
Okay, you run with it.
I'm James. Wow, kind of, you know, I may not look like a nerd. I should pull out my pens.
Look like a what?
Look like a nerd. Lately, I've had this facade of just having colored pens. So we think these are also weapons. That's just me. So I find myself listening to a lot of information at work, like, you know, 6 to 10 hours a day. The past 25 years. Yeah, I don't want to talk very loud. That's too bad.
A little bit.
So, you know, I'm always doing research and I keep finding the same types of materials in different ways. And I found something a couple days ago that really does a pretty good history of the pharma cartel.
Oh, yeah.
And
Good one.
it's, Ellie reduced it down to 3 pages. It's really kind of phenomenal. I mean, if you wonder how the whole world got hooked on pharma after, which is petrochemicals, soon after World War II, they used the same example. I mean, the whole world got hooked on pharma after World War II. They used the same example that they accomplished by 1920 in the United States to get people in the United States hooked on pharma. And there's all kinds of profit to be made off of deliberately reducing the nutrients that we get. But jumping back to frequencies, how many people know what percentage of the available frequencies the human eye can see? Is it 1%? 2%?
1/2?
5%?
Can or cannot
20 can see.
Can see.
1%, 2%,
Half percent.
5%,
I would say 12.
20%. Okay,
Or-
human beings can see 5%
5%.
of the light energy. That's all we can see.
You're talking about the light spectrum.
I'm talking about the entire light spectrum, from infrared to radiation.
We see only
We only see 5% of the light spectrum. There are so many other creatures on planet Earth that can see so much more than we can.
What about sound? How much sound do we hear?
That's a different subject.
Okay, sorry.
I'll do a slight segue since you mentioned it. Somebody mentioned that at different ages, human beings can't hear very much sound. And apparently at 40, you can't really hear above 12 gigahertz, or no, 12 hertz, 12,000 hertz, 12,000 hertz, which I couldn't hear. And I couldn't hear the 15 or the 18, but I have yet to not use my phone. So I don't know what the fidelity is on that speaker. But back to frequencies and health, I think that Craig and I mostly knock heads productively, and hopefully this will continue to be a productive example. Maybe I'm lying. So my understanding, and I want to be fairly brief on this, is any chemical reaction that you can get from food or drugs, you can duplicate with frequencies. More so with drugs. Foods are pretty doggone magical at a rate that causes a reaction that's 1,000 times faster. So the reason I mentioned what percentage of the light spectrum human beings can see, and it's only 5%, is there's a whole lot that we can't see, and there's a whole lot that we're not aware of. And people like Rudolf Steiner made observations more than 100 years ago. Apparently this observation was published in 1917, that he felt it was much more difficult to be a human being because basically of all the dirty electricity. And this is more than 100 years ago. But these are observations that he made over several decades. And so where are we at today? What is going on? There is a lot of profit to poor health, but people don't even know what health isn't. They assume all these things. So I don't think I'm going to take 20 minutes to read this, but I'm going to speak about something that when I hear other people say, and it just really bugs me because there's a lot of people that I think they're incredibly intelligent, but they just don't take the time to explain the difference between the different generations of frequencies.
Mm-hmm.
So I will briefly. So we have right now, from what they're telling us, they're using what they call the 5th generation. So the first generation was 5 different specific frequencies. And the 2nd generation was another 10 specific frequencies. The 3rd generation was another 10 specific frequencies. The 4th generation was another 10 specific frequencies. But what they're calling the 5th generation is actually over 3,000 specific frequencies. And I'm going to plug the 2nd and 3rd films tomorrow. One is on Barry Trower, who was introduced to wireless warfare in 1959. He knows quite a bit about it. Quite well. The first film was it's a different one. It's a good one. It just describes, like, for example, the higher frequencies in the 5th generation is 6 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz. There's 750 different specific frequencies that they've isolated to affect the human mind. And they can overlap these things, mix them together, and provide different intensities. So we're at a pretty dark situation. But to backtrack a little bit, why on earth would our basic wireless be 2.451 gigahertz? Because that's what a microwave is. So it's just creating diabetes, it's just poor health, and it kills your food. The 6 gigahertz affects the iodine absorption in a human being, which is grossly, and iodine is very underplayed as far as its importance in human beings' health. There's a bunch of patents on 24 gigahertz. It affects exoskeleton creatures in a very negative way. And what they're calling the new Y gig, the 60 gigahertz, which the schools have been modified with the plug and play and the hospitals have been modified with, that affects the oxygen volume. So as much as I like to read this, I don't know if it's necessary, but I have copies for everyone to read at their leisure. It's quite ugly. It's pretty ugly because it goes into how we have just not seen anything yet. I suppose I'll close with, and I can speak further on this at another time or even now, that are limited. They've taken away 20 feet of our freedoms and they've given back 2 inches. Then I'm stealing that from Ellie. But yes. this is all planned. Wow. Because unfortunately the folks that have been living in a state of fear and have let their natural immune systems become lower because they're not social connecting and aren't in the sun and don't understand how much the light intensity is really damaging to our melatonin and all our patterns. What's going on now is just a setup. I mean, someone earlier this evening was referring to how the local business, Roxa, is being affected by the folks who think they're doing the right thing.
Wilder space. Wilder space.
Oh, the Wilder
space.
Space.
Right.
Excuse me, the Wilder space. We just haven't seen anything yet. I hope that nobody is negatively affected by the people who have taken the vaccines, but if it turns out that my information is that it makes you much more susceptible to new illnesses and
autoimmune.
And autoimmune. And it's we just haven't seen anything yet. But if you guys really knew what the big governments have been doing to our water for the past 100 years, as well as this crap, I'm amazed that we're still alive. So we can be.
We are, the fact that we're so alive is proof of it.
It's diminished by all the electro-smog.
Why don't we just
So
go to-
why? Because there's no profit interest to it. You know, there are predators that want to see us suffer. I mean, how
And
many
literally profit.
family? I haven't experienced very much not being around anybody that I absolutely want to be around. Maybe that's because I'm an asshole and a hermit, but because I seem to be able to see whoever I want to see. Oh, that's not true. I don't get to see our council members, or the lawyers, or the local sheriff, but they must hear me coming or something. So I appreciate these talks, and I have learned so much, and I always want to continue learning. So I mean, that's enough for now. I mean, if anybody didn't get a copy of this, this is a very interesting read. It's just
How many did you bring?
a lot, over 20 copies.
I'm gonna add on to that. What's
Yeah.
so important about that is the groundwork was already laid for that, because the last true head of the FDA, Harvey Wiley, passed the Pure Food and Drug Act in 1906.
The good guy.
And Harvey Wiley was the last true head of the FDA. The Pure Food and Drug Act stated anything with white flour and white sugar has to have a cancer-causing label on it. It was never enforced, and he was fired out of office in 1908, I believe. The act was never enforced because the big grain cartels said, F you, we're not enforcing this. And then every head of the FDA since 1908 has been a puppet for industry, what we call the medical mafia. So then in 08, see, they'd already eliminated the three-letter agency. And then what was that, the first date on there, James? 1913 or something?
1913 is when the Supreme Court wanted the Rockefeller Standard Oil to be dissolved. But at that point, 1913, Rockefeller's companies were above this.
Well, Federal Reserve.
Well, that was,
1913, no.
yes.
That was also 1913, wasn't it? The Federal Reserve?
December 23rd, 1913 is when blank Wilson signed the Federal Reserve Act.
Just to tie it in, I wonder if it was a Friday.
So one other thing, you guys,
It was the 23rd, not the
World War II was raging at this point. And guess what happened with World War II? It's called the Titanic. We don't know the true history of who was on the Titanic and who died on the Titanic.
Oh, I got it back up.
Yeah. James knows.
No,
James
the
knows.
Titanic sunk before 1913. Actually, excuse me, the Titanic didn't sink. Its sister ship, the Britannia, sank. And there were characters that wanted to.
Wait, let me
Olympia.
talk.
Oh, I thought it was
Olympic is the sister ship of the Titanic.
Olympia.
I thought
Olympic.
The Olympic.
I
They
thought it was
switched
the
the
Britannia.
ship and they had to change the carpet
Yeah.
because
So-
people noticed the carpet was dirty.
Really?
Abandoned ship.
But wasn't there there was a rich guy that didn't want the Federal Reserve on that boat who died, I thought.
There were a bunch of them.
Yeah.
So they slaughtered all these people that were against what they were doing. And that's how they've been working for 100 years.
So now what they're going to do is they're going to get the maskers to slaughter us. I'm sorry, I said it. I meant it.
You
Learn how to be a
literally-
zombie. I do.
Yeah, like literally they're going to come after us. Well, they're
Okay,
already.
I invite anyone to see the movies
Come
or
tomorrow
get
night.
copies
Yeah.
because there's over 750 specific patent frequencies that affect human personality and psychology.
And we are more powerful than that, and we must, the best thing about learning all this is that it helps us to know where we have to rise to,
Well,
because we have to.
I agree. I think that's a lovely concept, but knowing how to be a zombie and having an imagination of what's a pen and what it can also be used for is a survival. So it's a sense of humor.
But that's part of what we have to
So
rise
the
to.
electricity, and Jonty would know this, but I asked the guy that does my house, because you go from DC to AC, and I said, why? Isn't DC a cleaner running energy bill? And he says, well, that's what they taught us to do. You have to run it in AC. You know that. You do that.
Okay, Joanne, you brought up a really good point. All small appliances our little inverters, our phones are all DC energy. And that is one of the largest causes of electrical smog.
You mean AC?
Is DC?
DC. No, these
AC.
little inverters.
The inverters.
These little inverters are not good for you.
That's why there's electrosmog on the
I
phones?
know there's at least one person in this room that could speak to the benefits of turning their power off and everything at night.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
No, you're still going to be attacked by your neighbors.
Why?
So
Because of the power of what their units are.
And even the solar roof things, the inverter bothers
Oh, they're
people when
terrible.
they switch the energy.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily so green for everybody.
No.
Right.
But you want them on, if you're
Well,
going
it's
to
the
do it,
same
you
with
want them on,
electric
you want
cars.
them in your backyard, on your side yard, on a slant.
You could talk about
Yeah, you-
that too.
So now that you give us the bad news, do you have any solutions?
Wait. Okay,
Wait.
Minimize your.
okay, let's we're gonna go ahead. Let's let James talk so it gets clear on the recording.
I don't always agree with Monica, but I agree with Monica that she said we are very powerful human beings and we can overcome that. And I could speak further on that subject, but not being in a state of fear, being in a state of curiosity and action, the heart energy is said to be up to 5,000 times stronger than when you're in a state of fear.
Sure.
So I mean, it's
Unstoppable.
being fearful is a sign of intelligence.
Mhm.
If you do something,
Yeah.
if you move towards it logically.
Oh, Taoist statement to add on to that. 3,000-year-old statement. If you don't know when to fear, you are in fearful danger. That's called arrogance.
So
People say, I don't have any fear. They're full of shit.
It's your intuition for survival, right?
So I was taught, what do you use to overcome fear? You use your willpower.
Intelligence.
You sit in the fear and you say, okay, you're there with the stories and you still go through. Think about Craig Lane, 20-foot waves, Scotts Creek. Looking out there, my buddies are like, hey, we're out there. And I'm looking at it going, fear, pounded into the rocks kind of fear, and nevertheless, you face it and go up. I didn't think of my mom. I thought about the shark waiting out there for me. So, but if you don't have the wherewithal to go to willpower, that's grace. And there's this whole thing with grace that we've forgotten. It's not within our means to be awake or asleep. That is not under our control. We can play on the freeway of grace and get better grace, but it's not within our control. And we think it is. And that's a big wake-up call for many of the spiritual seekers out there. We don't get to decide grace. That's why there's all these songs, Amazing Grace, how sweet it is. And you can pray to grace. That's been my root level prayer, I call it, for 20 years. Divine self, help me stay awake so I can use my tools. That's something we can do. Pray to stay awake. That's a root level prayer. Because if you're not awake and you've got all your spiritual tools are worthless.
Say more about how that's a prayer for grace. Connect the dots. That if you're praying to be awake, it's a prayer for grace.
Because grace is awake.
Okay, thank you.
It's just another word for grace. So you just pray for wakefulness. Because most of us are walking around, zombie apocalypse he's mentioning. That's what James is saying. Learn how to play the game to look like you're asleep, but you're actually not. You're awake, pretending you're asleep. That's what I hear you saying, right? Is that what you're saying when you say play like the zombies? Be like a zombie?
That's more or less confidential. It's more than
Okay, sure.
But I do have something that came to mind when you were talking.
Okay.
It has to do with grace. My grandmother, who read a lot of the Reader's Digest, but my chiropractor put her in more pain than she's ever been in her life. And she was 90. So I was reading this book that I thought was really interesting called Deep Survival. And it's all these really fascinating stories where some people have just these crazy things that happen to them, like their car is taken off a cliff by an avalanche while they're driving. And many of them die. But it talks about the ones that endured and lived. And so I read this book and I came up to my grandmother and I just kind of said, hey, what do you think is the most important attribute to being a survivor? And within 3 seconds, she's like, a sense of humor. Here's this woman, a sense of humor.
Sense of humor.
A sense of humor. So my grandmother had a lot of grace. She was having trouble walking, and for years she was using one of those walkers, and she atrophied half of her body. And she was doing some gardening at my mom's house. And then a few days later, my mom noticed that she wasn't moving so well. She kind of explained what happened. So my chiropractor, I could give you his name, he can rip telephone books in half. Now he works for Google. He's an amazing man. He worked on her, and it was hard tissue massage. It was kind of like rolfing. My grandmother had never broken a bone in her body at that point, and she didn't have any broken bones, but it extended her life. My grandmother lived within 5 weeks of her 104th birthday.
Wow.
And when she came out to finally live with my mom and her husband, it was kind of like the transformation. What was that king that was taken over by Saruman in the Lord of the Rings?
Oh,
Theoden?
I can't remember.
Yeah. Okay, yeah. Just a transformation. Once she got into and around people that really loved her, she just, she's, when you're dealing with someone who has Alzheimer's and you know how to communicate with that person, you can communicate with them fairly well.
Absolutely.
If you don't, it can be very frustrating.
Absolutely.
But yeah, my grandmother lived within 5 weeks of her 104th birthday, had a stroke, died within 4 days. Probably my aunt blank gave her too much morphine at 3 o'clock in the morning. But I spent 5 hours with her 2 days after it happened. It was 2 days before she died. And I just took a nap with her, and I was talking to her. She couldn't talk, but she knew it was me. So it was really cool. So yeah, our energy to be as positive as we can dealing with the situation, it's just a daunting situation. It's like the more I learn, the more questions I have, and it's ridiculous. Hopefully there's some truth to civilizations that were way more advanced than us 2 billion years ago, that some people are getting out information that we're doing stuff, because we're in a really interesting 6th mass extinction on planet Earth. Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
I'm going to run with some more solutions because James did a great job.
Oh, it's got her hand.
I don't want to be on the camera, but I just want to mention, while we're talking about frequencies and trying to look at some positive things, I want to bring up heart math. It's not something that I'm educated enough on to be able to speak on, but I know what I've read about it blows my mind as far as something that's positive out there and how frequencies can be used in a positive way. And heart math is something which is locally based. Yeah, which is locally based. So if anybody's really kind of feeling like, a little bit overwhelmed by some of these things, I think that's one thing to look at as somebody like myself, who's definitely a pragmatist and extremely wary. I don't want to be on camera.
No, it's not. It's on screen share. Heart Math Institute.
I am.
Oh, that little tiny piece. I see. Okay, the little tiny window. I was trying to show you we had the heart math up. The website's up.
It's up in Boulder Creek. I know where it is.
No, it's for the people on the recording.
Oh,
it's a screen share. People on the recording.
Anyway, so I just want to bring that up because that's something, like I said, for somebody who's very skeptical of all this frou-frou stuff, that blew my mind. And I learned about it after the 9/11 events occurred in 2001. It was pretty mind-boggling, some of the things that were accomplished and measured and studied and pretty much set in stone scientifically. Yes.
Definitely. So every minute of your time.
Yeah. So I just wanted to bring that up as a positive note. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellie. That's we'll go into Q&A. I got a couple more things. I don't like go into that so much. So you wanted solutions. So that's why I do a cleanse every 3 months. Every season we do a cleanse because there's a circadian rhythm to the organ systems every day and every year. And the liver and the gallbladder are becoming dominant, what they would call the wood element frequency in Chinese medicine. In the winter, it's the water element frequency. In the summer, it's the fire element frequency. In the fall, it's the metal element frequency. So each frequency has a certain amplitude, duration, and action. So right now, the actions, everything's going out, right? Where the seed was, the roots are growing down and the plant's growing up. So the Chinese call this plasma energy. I don't know if it connects with our Western version of plasma energy, but it's rapidly growing energy. And I talk about the solutions for what we're going through. Well, there's 5 toxicities. And one of the toxicities is, it's not new, but we're being bathed in it, and that's radiation damaged tissue is one of the 5 toxicities. So we have ionizing radiation, that's like Fukushima, and then we have non-ionizing radiation, which is your radio frequencies, like your microwaves. Is sound a, could sound be a non-ionizing radiation, theoretically? Could sound be made into a non-ionizing radiation? Because radio frequencies are.
It's kind of like stomping your thing and saying the only thing we really have is the present moment right here.
Yeah.
And it depends on what frequency you're working on.
Okay.
So I would say yes or no.
So one of the solutions is I bought these years ago from, I was using Nikan and these little AccuMagnets. So, I mean, you can kind of get a sense of how small these magnets are. See my nail there. So this magnet right here, this teeny little thing can pick up 50 pounds. They measure this amplitude of magnets by Gauss, G-A-U-S-S. So this is a 5,000 Gauss magnet. So, I mean, I can't really get it on the computer here, but watch this, that little thing right there. And watch this.
Shouldn't it be able to pick up this cast iron lid?
I think we can. So see how it's about an inch away, and it's affecting it.
Look, I can get 50 pounds with one hand.
Let's see. Let's bring it over. Let's see if it'll lift it.
Oh, you'll pull it out your finger. You won't be able to.
Let's see.
Tag it right there. No. Yeah.
It won't lift it.
That's why I'm questioning.
Yeah, it's not going to do it. It's pretty. So, thanks, James. We
not always.
So
just most of the time.
I know these work because I put them on meridians. I do acupuncture work, and so I had a girlfriend years ago. I have a hernia on my inguinal side right here, so I was using the liver meridian to raise the energy up there, and so these meridians go up into the head, and I didn't balance the energy out right. So my girlfriend, about an hour after I had these AccuMagnets, and she goes, "Craig, your face is all swollen and distorted." And I'm like, "What?" So I went and looked in the mirror, and this cheek was 50% bigger than this side of my head. And then I took the magnets out, and an hour later, it went completely back to normal. Scary. But James is talking about how you can change things quickly with frequencies. Well, magnets are one of those ways. And you want to mention the magnet thing real quick?
I'd rather just walk out and grab the stuff. And
sure.
Come back.
Okay.
It's just easier to
Well, he has a magnet website. You can get a lot of magnets for very cheap.
You just ordered 25 pounds from them.
I just got 25 pounds of
$200, right?
What's it called, James?
It's $100.
Amazing magnets.
It's $4 for half a pound, I think.
$4 for half a pound.
Yeah, $4 for half a pound.
Can we buy some from you?
You can get some from me, yeah. We'll get it. So I have a Rife machine I bought, and that's another frequency device. And I bought it because I met a woman years ago. I was actually dating her on a dating website, and she had Lyme really bad, and nothing could help her. And she said her claim was the only thing that helped her was a Rife machine. So she would plug in the frequency for Lyme, and she didn't have to even be near the machine. She could be on the other side of the earth. And this Rife machine, she would turn it on, and the frequency would help her, no matter where. You have to hold something, right? You don't have to hold them. You can. You have the rods, but you don't. That's another way to use the machine. You can also use the machine to test foods that you might be allergic to. So I bought the machine last year, and I've had zero time to look at it. But I think that one of the helpers here, one of the assistants in the group, could probably focus on that. Homeopathy is another frequency-based homeopathy. You can also get a lot of quack. There's a lot of homeopathists that are quacks. It's very hard to get the right remedy for the right person because most people don't investigate enough. Sound, light. There's all those light frequencies now, the far infrareds, the saunas. So there are ways, and then we'll go back to the toxicities. I just want to mention that for the spring cleaning. So your radiation damaged tissue is one of the 5 toxins. Microbial waste is another one. It's a big part of what we are. Get over it, folks. You've got more bugs in your body than you do your own cells, and they're eating and pooping all day. So we're big bug poop containers.
And a lot of them are vitamins, so it's great.
The healthy bugs, that's why you want mostly healthy bugs, because the healthy bugs poop out proteins, B vitamins, immune factors. The bad bugs poop out inflammatory cytokines and opioids. There are bugs. There's a bug, a Clostridia, you know, botulism. That's the cause of autism. It is Clostridium. There's a Clostridium species that they eat wheat and they eat dairy and they shit out an opioid. And that's why the autistic kids go nuts when they don't get their mac and cheese or their pizza. I've seen 100 autistic cures. I've been a part of about 10 myself. 100%? They're never 100%, depends on the amount of damage. That's why my iridology and my iridology sclerology practice shows you how much damage you have in your body based on the dark coloration in your eyes and the amount of blood vessels in the sclera. So if I see someone that's had 30 years of this, then their chances of regenerating that highly damaged tissue is nil. It's kind of like a house you let go, right? If the house goes long enough, you got to just rebuild. So the soul goes, oh, that body's too broken. I'll just take it out and we'll start over again the next life.
Sometime tell us how the vaccine adjuvants, etc., create that Clostridium.
We might go there tonight, but I want to give James the floor when he comes back because this magnet thing is really important. So bug poop, the second one. Next one is chemical toxins. You could argue that we have the highest amount of chemical toxins we've ever had to deal with. There's our normal microbial, there's our noble metabolic toxins, and then chemicals, and then finally heavy metal toxins. So I call those the 5 toxicities, and it's in my paperwork for the cleanse. There's remedies for each. There's certain herbs, certain foods, you can remedy each more quickly than just trying to do it on your own. So
did you include molds in that? Molds and yeasts and...
Yeah, so mold, we don't give mold enough credit for how much trouble it's causing in the body. And the good mold, we have beneficial mold and we have pathological mold. And we have mold that can become parasitic. Candida is a normal inhabitant of our gut. Get over it, folks. You just don't want it overgrown, turning into a parasite. When the Candida turns parasitic, it starts eating through tissue. And I have seen reports where the mother of the Candida, I've had the mother come out of me. It was like a space egg alien. And when the mother can send tentacles from the gut all the way into the brain, it eats through tissue. So if you don't take care of the mother, it's going to send tentacles all throughout your body, including down to the toes. Hint, hint, toenail fungus.
Wow.
So if you got toenail fungus, you got hyphae growing all the way down your legs into your freaking toes. You are a walking mold machine.
Movie Alien was more real than you know.
I have one part of my toenail is fungusy because of 40 years of surfing and being in a wetsuit too much. You know, the vitiligo, the white spots. Every surfer I know that surfs long enough in those wetsuits gets the vitiligo. It's mold. It's mold eating your melanocytes. It's gross. It's gross, but that's what it is.
It is from the wetsuits?
Well, the surfer's cases. I mean, I used to walk around the beach for 3 or 4 hours with my wetsuit bottom on, walk around Cow's Beach as a teenager, thinking it was a great thing. And then it's like, why does my leg smell so awful?
Seriously.
I mean, there's damp, wet, hot thing for 3 hours. Of course, it's gonna smell weird. Okay, James got his magnets.
There's a configuration of magnets that magnetizes your water. And I use this as a demonstration at the supervisors meeting for a couple things, but I also said it could be considered an act of domestic terrorism because if you, with any compass, the opposites attract. And so what this is this is 2 souths facing each other, 2 norths facing each other, a north and a south, and 2 souths. Wow. The act of domestic terrorism is if not this size, but specifically this size, and I'll hand these out, we'll turn off a smart meter.
Really?
You guys can pull in that thing. You can pull these apart, but just be careful with your fingers.
Don't hurt yourself. These are strong.
Yeah, these ones are pretty strong.
So you could lift the iron lid with this thing.
Oh yeah.
Let's try it.
Oh yeah.
Where is that iron lid? Oh, look at that. Wow. I can't get it off. Where is this?
No, your hand is around. Oh.
Let's see real quick.
What, the other side, because that's a smaller magnet.
Okay. Whoa.
Hey.
Look at that, folks.
So
Be careful.
You can get magnets at the local hardware store, and they're not that much more expensive than if you go through a site. But I was curious, and I got, okay, I'll get 20 half-pounds, which is 10 pounds for $80. And these are the strong ones. Sorry.
Black eye.
See, I realized, no, it's
a strong magnet.
Don't try that at home,
this only
folks.
kind of hurts. I realized that once a magnet breaks, it screws it up and it doesn't go back together. So I wrap these things in glass tape.
So you've got a south and a north facing each other right now?
It doesn't hurt.
It hurts a little bit.
It would hurt you.
No, it hurts a little bit.
I know, but I think it would hurt the rest.
And that's a major acupuncture point. That's inner gate and outer gate. That's a major acupuncture point for the immune system, right?
Whoa. Are you okay? Oh.
Yeah, I'm okay.
You can hear them, you know, clack, clack, clack.
So, but oh, you have that.
This is that glass tape you were talking about?
That's glass tape. Yeah.
This is a glass. This
And
is
I
glass
generally
tape,
wrap
folks.
my magnets
Glass
in
tape.
cardboard because
Why do you do the glass tape? What's
Oh,
that
yeah.
for?
Because if the magnet breaks,
Uh-huh.
it can cut you and it chips and it never goes back together. It doesn't stick together. Once it breaks, it doesn't, it tweaks on itself. Apparently I haven't been consistent, but if you like drink out of a magnetized straw, and I don't recommend drinking out of plastic, this is 1 around 7 for a particular reason. It's supposed to get rid of your gray hair. And obviously I haven't been I got more gray than I would like. Put that strap on the table.
Okay, where are we at? We're doing pretty good. 9:30.
You know, I didn't realize that Craig had as much knowledge as he did about the magnets. There are people that are certified in magnetic healing, and they've made amazing results with people who have something that they
can
call
pass that around.
autism or MS.
That's what I wrote 20 years ago for my
ALS,
magnets.
migraine headaches.
Leaky.
I didn't know about leukemia, but a particular note, the ringing of the ears, what do they call that? Tinnitus, yeah. So for me, I can clearly recall electrical attacks at least 5 times in my life. And it's always happened in my truck, and it's always happened like right after I publish something because they're watching me. And you can reconfigure the magnets around you. And the most noticeable symptom that I notice is the ringing in the ears. Only a few times has it actually affected my breathing. And I tested that on Pacific Avenue. It happened 3 times.
You mean you got ringing or you stopped?
No. It affected my breathing when I was walking down a certain part of Pacific Avenue, and I was like freaked out. I'm like, oh my God. So I went around the block and it happened again. And I'm like, oh, come on, do it.
In the same spot?
Yeah.
Wow.
Right in front of the Verizon store.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, but when it happens to me, because parts of my cab are metal, I just reconfigure the magnets, because some of the wireless weapons, even though they're billions of cycles a second, are down to the 3rd decimal point. And the magnets can throw off that stuff. And it's like, stop the ringing in my ears, like almost immediately, within like 3 seconds.
So you just
I just move it to another location.
Yeah.
Well, so do you have different ones on your car? You got some.
Oh, I just grabbed magnets that were sticking to my ceiling in my cab.
So which ones do you have on your car? Are they like those little round ones?
Several times more than what I brought in.
Yeah.
But they're the same kind as those?
They're
stick them around
just
in
different shapes. It doesn't matter though.
When you buy them off this website, you guys, they make it clear you're going to get all kinds of shapes and sizes of broken magnets.
The
doesn't
different,
matter.
like these are just stuck together. I don't know why I taped them, probably because I just did.
That's from that company.
These ones are real, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this was part of when I got 10 pounds, it took me 3 hours to separate the magnets. There were so many.
Wow.
So I got $100 worth, so that would be 12 and a half
20
pounds.
pounds is $200.
Wow.
No, I got $100 worth, so whatever that is, that would
10
be
pounds.
12 pounds. There we go. So I'll be working on that. You know, the magnets came to me through Michael Tierra and the Niken thing, and these acumagnets, I've alleviated I put the little thing up. There's a north facing side and a south facing side on these things. And if you look, there's a hole on one side of these. And so I think that's the north side where the energy is going into the, pardon?
That's what it says here.
And so the energy is going in there. So you can change the polarity of the magnet. You can bring energy into a point that's deficient, or you can release energy from a point which does pain. So I get these classic gallbladder headaches. It's classic right on the temples. And I put a magnet on each side, draining outward, and the headache will go away in a minute.
Draining outward, meaning the north side is outward?
The north side, you want whatever way where the energy goes out. I get mixed up on the north and the south. I'm not.
You showed north going up and south going down.
It doesn't matter what you label it as. You want the energy going out, whatever it is on that. You know, we're not just like, we don't. All we need to do is look at, you know, when the thing's going in, energy is going in. So whatever that is, you want it. You want the little dimple going. You want the divot against your skin. Yeah, that's how you remember it. So you want to have the polarity, so the energy is going out, and that's how you know. Because if you had just two solid sides, you wouldn't really know the polarity. So they make it easy on you, and they don't sell these anymore. They're up in Canada. I got them from this company, and they're teeny little things. You know, they're tiny. But I got the ones from James for the same reason, because you can put a magnet on an acupuncture point and change the polarity. So say you're pretty toxic and you've got, we were talking about congestion earlier, you could put a set of magnets on your lungs going outwards to get the mucus moving. And as James said, it would probably work a lot faster than diet because it's the frequency. And so with cleansing this year, because we got a couple of people leaving, with cleansing this year, we're looking at using frequencies during the cleanse. So we'll have some magnetic therapy rooms set up maybe. And yeah, and be careful what you post because people are getting targeted.
Yeah, there's a lot of short videos of biomech.
Good night, guys.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody.
I'm just going to pause this. My phone is actually up there. If somebody gets me my phone, I will, all you got to do is, I'll show you what we're going to do. So a tongue photograph, that one on your other hand. Yeah, that one there. So what does a tongue photograph tell you about your body?
It's another reflexology. You can see all kinds of
things. It depends how much you know. People can talk for a half hour about looking at your tongue.
Not truly reflexology. Yeah. You can
or even practitioners can just go on for days looking at your tongue.
Yeah.
That's right.
And taking your pulse.
That's right. So pulses are showing us chi. How the chi is running in the 12 meridians. You've got 6 pulses on each side, 3 on the surface and 3 deep. And so you've got 12 pulses that you can read. But in my opinion, you're reading chi. You can't diagnose a gallstone on a pulse. Can you? Do people do it?
People do that kind of thing, yeah. But you know,
that's advanced.
But they're probably just psychic, you know, and they're just kept getting it another way, you know.
Well, I get hits too. I'll put my fingers on people, and that's why I do it, as I'm waiting for the psychic reading. And then I backtrack and go to the science. Like, why did I get that reading? And then backtrack with the science. Because if you're just getting intuitive hits and you can't backtrack the science, my teacher said you're a quack. And I agree. You should be able to explain. You should be able to get the rationality for why you're recommending to do a fast for 30 days, for example.
It's a Vulcan death, mind reading. It's Vulcan pulse reading.
Vulcan pulse reading. And then your tongue. So Jonty's right. I've had people diagnose with pulses. I don't like to diagnose with pulses. I like to have, my teacher said, you want 3 parameters. So if I see something in the iris, something on the tongue, and something on the pulse, then I've gotten somewhere. I've got 3 vectors of action pointing at this phenomenon, this frequency in the body. But 3 is the minimum. So that's why Monica knows, that been through my exam process. My exam process is multifaceted. There's like 8, 9, 10 things we're looking at. And so if you find 3 pointing in the same direction, you can go, well, that action, liver yang rising, you know, you got a red head, your tongue's all red and your eyes are bloodshot. Well, you got all these symptoms and we can diagnose liver yang rising. Then you got to translate it, of course. You know, liver yang, me and Jonty know what that means. But everybody else is like, what is he talking about? And then the tongue is, so we have 4 tissue types in the body, 4 only. And these are skin cells. So the cells on the tongue are the same cells all the way down to the anus. So wouldn't it make sense if you have a hamburger helper tongue, you're going to have hamburger helper all the way down? I call it a chopped up tongue. I mean, there are tongues, you want your tongue not chopped up like hamburger. Because if it is, then you've got leaky gut all the way down. And so the tongue has its limitations. You're really looking at the gut and the state of inflammation of the gut with the tongue. Now, there are people that, like James said, they can get a lot more out of the tongue, but I have other means to do that. So we could take some tongue photographs, and your tongue, I told this client the other day, she's like, well, what do I do so I can get to this higher level of health? And I said, you need to watch yourself every day. Look at your tongue in the mirror every day. Take your pH of your saliva and urine every day. Take your temperature right out of bed every day. Do your Raglands test, lying down, standing up. You know, costs $40, $50 for a blood pressure cuff. And if you do those things, then that lying down and standing up blood pressure check is my #1 test. Because if you don't have vitality, you're not going to do anything. Remember when you're a kid, you don't want to clean up your room because you're tired? Yeah. The cells of the body work the same way. When they're tired, they ain't going to detox. So that's why we do that in my world, because if you want to do a big old cleanse, but you're running a high level of adrenal fatigue, you're not going to cleanse. I put people on a resting fast. That's what the resting's about. Your adrenals are failing. We're going to put you on 7 out of 21 days of sleep. And one guy took me up on it. And he bought a couch for his business. I talked about him before. Took a lot of naps. And his tongue beginning and end, and his eyes beginning to end, he did better than his whole family. Because he was resting. And one of my yoga teachers says, guess what the most important posture for Americans is? You want to take a guess? Shavasana. Very good. Why would corpse pose be the most important posture for Americans, according to this guy? Yin and yang. We're too fiery. So Shavasana is complete stasis, right? Very yin. So that's kind of what the rest is about. So my cleanses are also, it's called the power of opposites. If you're a big carb eater, then your cleanse is no carbs. If you're a big protein steak eater, then your cleanse is no steak. If you stay up late, your cleanse is going to bed early. If you go to bed early, well, we don't want you staying up late, actually. Probably not good. But anybody ever stayed up all night consciously? Oh, yeah, Alma, right. So for Alma, did you do it for Alma too? I couldn't see him at Alma. She's the hugging saint. She's the hugging saint.
I'm struggling to make that
No, I never went. No, people wait in line for hours, right? People wait in line for hours, right, to see Alma?
7 hours.
Oh, you don't have to do that anymore? Okay. I'll go with you, James. If you want to meet her, I'll go with you. I'll hold your hand.
She's gonna hug you and cradle you, and then she's gonna say things.
It's entirely possible that I would want to do that, but right now I'm not holding my breath.
No expectations.
All right. There's other people I'd rather wait in line to see.
Very true.
Yeah.
The BOS. All right, any questions?
I have a question about cleansing. So for water, for cleanses, how long? I want to break through my 7-day. I want to go 10-day. What do you think about 10-day fast?
Oh, 10-day fast.
Yeah, I'm sorry, not cleanse, fast.
Well, a 10-day fast is a 30-day process.
Really? Oh, you mean preparing and then coming down?
So whatever amount of days you're fasting, I was taught you want to lead in with an equal amount of days and lead out equal amount of days. So a 5-day fast is a 15-day process. So what you do though is, so you take 10 days and you eliminate something every day and get it down to nothing. And then it's the same thing going out. And it's coming out a lot harder, right? Yeah. I did a fast for 3 days and I couldn't control my cravings. And I overate on my first day back. It ruined the fast.
Yeah, that's the hardest part right there.
It ruined the fast.
Yeah.
So I had to go and do another fast to make up for the ruined fast. This is horrible.
There's something I'm not clear on. You're saying if you're doing a 10-day fast, it's actually over 30 days. The first 10 days, you eliminate something every day from your fast, and then you're fasting after the 11th day. Anything. You're not eating anything on the 11th day. What is not eating anything?
Water.
What would be the density of the fluids?
Water.
Only the key. You don't drink, you don't
And distilled water.
You don't put honey in there. You don't put any other nutrients.
Nothing. Now we should go into.
I'm asking because I want to know.
Right.
So James, I'm going to point you towards this guy. He has something called the snake juice diet.
Oh. Snake.
You know this guy? James would love this guy, I think. The snake juice diet on YouTube. And his intro video starts out with, "Hey, fatty, lose some weight." And he drops an F-bomb every sentence. But he has a huge following. And he's very intelligent on some level too. So his snake juice drink is a mineral-rich drink that you drink when you're fasting. There's no calories, but there's magnesium and calcium and sodium and potassium in the drink. The root cause protocol that Rick and Tammy are familiar with, Morley Robbins, he's the vitamin D guy, the copper guy. He has a whole protocol with that also. And it's he calls his the adrenal cocktail, so he calls it an adrenal cocktail. And he adds lemon juice / vitamin C for the vitamin C into his. So lemon juice is, how many calories are in a lemon, for God's sakes? Not much. So you're trying to keep your calories to a minimum during a fast. But so you can do a modified fast. The next level up would be, well, have a juice fast. Mm-hmm.
That's a very, very good idea for most people.
Yeah, get some juice.
You could also break that. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Well, they do a lot of healing at the Santa Rosa True North.
Yeah.
Water fast.
Yeah.
Right.
People have had phenomenal healings.
But the reason that the juice fast is so good is because a water fast, if you have people really supporting you, it's really amazing. But without support, it's a million times safer and better for people to do a juice fast.
You have to rest when you're doing a water fast, unless you're a man like James and you can get away with it.
Have a lot of help.
I had no help my last one. I was in Colorado, altitude, like September, and I did a 7-day. And yeah, that would have been nice to have help, but I was alone in the mountains resting, and I was around an incredible environment. And so I think the environment, people, help, where you are, can you rest, are you working, all of it, And it was the best detox for sure. It was the best.
So if I was on my fast, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do the Raglan's test every morning and every night. I'm going to take my saliva and urine pH, and you got to keep on top of your electrolytes. You got to keep on that, because if you start getting dizzy, and I had one client, she was just doing a keto diet because she was too high carb, and she was a yard duty at elementary school, and she passed out, passed out right in the middle of brunch.
So
recess.
Aware, if you even just a juice fast, if you are not aware and careful, you can break bones, you can harm yourself so much more easily. Your body is in a tremendously fragile state at various points. And unless you understand when those are, I threw my back out. Helping somebody to their feet, it was nothing. And I threw my back out. And
so you start with a 1-day fast.
Yeah, you got to be really aware.
25 years ago, I did a 1-day fast. At the time, I was a 30-year-old man. Are you kidding me? Everything smelled good. I went out for a bike ride to try and avoid my housemates at the time, because they were making food. And I made the mistake of having ginseng tea on a fast as a 30-year-old man. It made me more hungry. Have a cup of ginseng tea. You see Michael Tira right now going, "You're a 30-year-old man. What are you doing, you idiot? You don't need ginseng as a 30-year-old man. A 50-year-old man needs ginseng." And so it was too yang, and it dried me out. And you see, I think that I don't want to get people into this fear thing about fasting from what Monica said, because I don't necessarily agree with that, the caution, but I also think you need to be cautious. But if you want to jump in, do a day. Try it. Do a day.
Yeah, Keith healed his fibromyalgia after a 20-day fast. And then there was a woman there who was having severe pain every day so badly she just wanted to commit suicide, but all kinds of doctors tried to help her. And it took her, I think, 3 weeks. Like, it got worse at the 2 weeks, which is usually the longest they did. The 3rd week, it healed.
So that's another thing about fasting, is you'll see layers on the tongue coat. During a fast, you'll see this. I have this guy here who's going through kidney failure, and we did some fasting and changes of stuff, and even baking soda water. And there's this point where he's got this rug on his tongue that was like that thick of mucus. And he thought he was going to die. Like, what is this? And I go, it'll pass in a couple of days. And it did, because of experience. And then they say when that goes away and your appetite's down, then you can start to think about ending your fast, because you want that tongue to turn that ugly color and then out. And on 3 days, it's so well documented now, the autophagy starts, the cells start spontaneously regenerating. But the original study on that was done at Calcutta University in 1933. Yogananda cited it in Autobiography of a Yogi, that the cells would spontaneously regenerate after 3 days. And guess why that study was buried in 1933? Of course it was buried. And now the ego guys are like, oh, look what we found out. We found it out 100 years ago. Shut the fuck up. You know, it's like the West. We're so arrogant here in the West. It's like, give India some credit. They found out long before we did. Long before.
I was on a 7-day fast, and on the 5th day, I was working with a crew. We were pulling steel I-beam around and welding it up and stuff. And
on a fast?
Yeah, and the foreman asked me why, if I forgot my lunch because I wasn't eating. And I said, well, I'm on a 7-day fast. He said, what? You're out here working with this crew and you haven't eaten anything for 5 days? I said, yeah, I just been drinking water and tea. And the guy just looked at me like I was totally insane.
But you felt okay.
I had lots of energy, yeah.
Wow.
So you felt okay.
I could smell the guy 20 feet away eating a chocolate.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So when you get hungry, when you're hungry enough, I was riding my bike down the neighborhood that day, and I swear I smelled the barbecue 3 blocks away.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Just goes.
I reached a point about day 5, 6 or so where food doesn't smell good to me anymore.
Right.
Maybe day 7.
Right.
You know, somewhere in there, it just doesn't even smell good. Like, it's so gross. It's like I literally don't think I ever want to eat anything. Certainly nothing fried again.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah, and then
Right.
everything, bread, cheese, it all just looks disgusting to me. Fruit and vegetables, but, you know, it doesn't take long to get back in there.
Oh, sorry, I didn't.
Remember, we're still being recorded, so just keep that in mind.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to ask you a question because I did 2-day fast, but my problem, I don't want to lose weight. I actually.
Okay.
So I have the problem if I do fasting more than even 2 days, I lose too much weight.
Okay, so
I don't like it. So
people that, I'm going to digress just slightly. People that can't gain weight and people that can't lose weight, it's actually the same problem on some level. So what my teacher said, I could never gain weight. I have trouble keeping weight on. And so my teacher said, what you want to do is you do a fast and then get yourself back into eating again after a day or two, and then gorge yourself for a day, like just keep eating. And then a week later, do another cleanse. And so there's a cleansing and sort of overeating cycle to gain weight.
okay.
And then I went through that for a number of years. And then I actually started gaining weight when I ate less, weirdly enough, because it was about chewing food properly.
Oh, yeah.
If you don't chew your food well, you're not going to get access to it. You ain't got teeth down there. It'd be nice if you had teeth in your stomach, but we don't.
I was with a family in Cuba, and the son ate 3 full plates of food every night, and I went to the bathroom after he did, and he forgot to flush the toilet. And I saw what was in the toilet. It was like all of the food that didn't chew, like whole kernels of corn, stuff. Yeah. He would chew twice and swallow it. And that's why he had to eat 3 plates of food in order to get full, yeah. Because he wasn't metabolizing the food. He wasn't chewing any of it.
Yeah.
And it's rotting down there.
Oh,
and guess what? I had a Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride, the one who wrote the Gut and Psychology Syndrome book, Dr. Natasha. I saw her at the Weston Price conference a number of years ago, and someone asked her about salmonella. And I love this lady because she's full terrain theory. She goes, well, stop playing a victim. Don't blame the salmonella for your rotting stomach. She goes, they're attracted to your rot in the air. So take responsibility for your rot. And I went, oh, wow, I like her. It's no victim with.
They're attracted, meaning they can smell the rot on someone, and that's where they go.
Here's how far a pheromone can go.
Intense.
There's a moth, there's a plant that sends a pheromone out when there's insects eating it. And it sends them a signal up to 2 miles away for a moth to come and eat the bugs that are eating the plant.
Wow.
2 miles.
Wow.
So you could have a salmonella 2 miles away going, ooh, rot. I'm going to go live in there. I like that's nice and
that's
lots of
palace.
food. It's a palace of rot.
Yeah. I didn't understand that.
Sugar and yeast, like yeast on your skin, is also attracting.
Yeah.
What does it attract?
If you eat too much sugar and your blood sugar elevates high enough, you'll sweat sugar.
And then what's it attract?
Yeast.
Yeast onto your body out of the air.
Because we have a microbiome here and in the gut and the eyeballs. You have multiple microbiomes. And
never eat never put something on your skin you wouldn't eat, because you are eating it through your skin.
And sunscreen causes cancer, folks.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Sunscreen causes cancer. Yes. It's one of those inverted things, like, oh, I'm helping my skin. No, you're not.
Yeah, I haven't used it.
I use oral sunscreens called vitamin F. Our ancestors knew all about it. It's part of the E complex, but it couldn't be synthesized in a lab, so they deemed it a non-vitamin.
What about zinc?
The zinc oxide, might have benefit, but again, I'm not going to eat that, so I'm not going to put it on my skin. Chaparral, desert chaparral, they say if you do it, dry it and do an oil-based extract, put that in your skin, it's somewhat effective. I've used aloe gel. I went surfing in LA, I didn't have my vitamin F with me. There's this big aloe plant down in Leo, everybody knows Leo Carrillo, Leo Carrillo State Beach. So there was this aloe plant and I rubbed it all over my face and and then let it dry out. Then I went out in the water and it was slippery, but I didn't get sunburn.
Interesting.
Are there any people for whom vitamin F would not be enough protection? Are there any truly extremely fair-skinned people, do you think, or very fair-skinned people that couldn't use it?
Yeah, some people need to be careful, but I mean, everybody that's used it in the last 10 years, I had an office assistant and one of her friends took it and, she was vain and young lady and I'm vain. So she says, and she sent me a picture. She's like, see, Craig, I'm all sunburned. It doesn't work. And I go, were you taking it every hour you were in the sun? No. So you have to mega dose. You take 4 before you go in the sun and 3 every hour you're in the sun, depending on your weight, of course. And then if you do it frequently enough, you won't get sunburned. I mean, I'm a surfer. I'm in the water with the reflections and everything. Do I look sunburnt?
Right.
No.
And anybody with ancestors who grew up where olive trees grow, olive oil is a natural SPF of 10 to 15, which means put it on every 15 minutes. But coconut oil, it's not that I understand, but it's different people. And I don't know if it's just tropical or not, but I know because I asked over and over as a child, what the hell is olive skin? Why do people keep telling me we have olive skin? And I'm Black Irish, where it's really clear I used to have super dark hair and the blue eyes comes from a mix of Spain and Ireland. And so the Spanish part is where I got my olive skin. Right. And that's where I got the answer over bits and pieces in my 20s and 30s until I finally understood and started just using really good olive oil, not the stuff you get at Costco. That's not actually olive oil. But
yeah, thanks for saying that.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Monica.
In this state, it is legal to call anything and any oil anything of any tiny part of what's in it. So when it says super light olive oil, yes, super soy olive oil. Exactly a blend. It's a blend.
Canola is nice. They add it.
Canola and soy is what you're getting, and not good. But if you get the strong, pungent stuff, then you've got something, and it's really awesome.
It should solidify in the fridge.
Yeah. And it will help you to eat it, but putting it right on your skin is amazing. And first thing I learned was all the models said, you smell like a salad for 10 minutes, but you look great. And that's what they would do to take photos in all the magazines where their skin's all glowy and everything. That's all it was.
So something that a friend told me that we tried and she tried, put a quality oil, could be olive oil, could be coconut oil, all over your body. And then take the hottest shower you can stand. Put a towel down because you might slip and break your head.
Oh God, yeah.
But it just absorbs right in your skin. Beautiful. And it just makes you look much more vibrant.
Be sure you have a charcoal filter on your shower because you do not want to take the chlorine.
Or
the chlorine.
I'll add to it. You dry skin brush before you put the oil on in the shower, and then you've got all the old cells sloughed off, and it goes in even deeper.
That's a good idea.
You always dry brush towards your heart.
Yeah. Always brush towards your heart.
Oh, because the lymph. See, it's like one lady was saying, go away from the nipple, but towards the heart. So you could go like that. And I have a YouTube video that was one of the first ones I ever made, and laugh out loud. Dry skin brushing, I think, was the one. There were 3 that took off, and I think the dry skin brushing one, I guess 250,000 views. And why? I mean, I'm a total dork. It's unedited. I've got a hole in my sock. I put my foot up at one point, and this guy has a comment thread about the hole in my sock. Oh, at 2:05, look at Craig. He's got this holy sock. Look at the holy guy, you know, the pun of the holy, you know, and oh my God.
I happen to be one of the people inside after I met you. I think it's so good because it's so short and it gives permission. I had learned before, you do this, you do this.
Yeah.
It's always, I don't have time for that. Craig says, whoop, whoop, whoop,
just scrub away, you know.
Oh man, I could do that. Yeah, it was great. That's why I.
It's a low-hanging fruit.
A little. If I don't have time to do anything else, I just do.
Yes.
What you know.
Yeah.
This because that's one of the biggest, most important lymph system part of your lymph system. And it's like if I don't have time to do anything else, I try to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a new breast cancer patient. And I was telling her, like, you know, I'm the first guy to glorify a breast, but it's lymph tissue. The breast is basically lymph tissue. So for ladies especially, because they've got all this lymph tissue and you want it draining, you don't want it backing up in there.
So what's the technique you use for women?
Oh, I mean, this one woman was saying, she was the expert. She's saying you want a dry skin brush away from the nipple, you know, like but this way.
To get for everything else.
Kind of towards the heart. The head drains here. So this is the drainage area for the head. This is the drainage area for the arm. This is the drainage area for the legs. And there's a therapist on my YouTube channel, I have a little playlist with her, and she's a lymphatic massage specialist. So when I have a headache, I do this one little routine. It's right here, it's right here, it's right here, go to the back, and you reverse and come back. And manual lymphatic drainage, if you put a nickel on your arm, that's the pressure. So you're literally like, this is lymphatic massage pressure. Because you're just barely moving the fascia. And if you do it correctly, you'll feel your skull plates pop because the pressure that's built up in here, because there's a dam right here and it's trying to drain. That's what an earache is. That's what a sore throat is. That's what a headache is sometimes. There's too much stuff in the brain because it can't drain past the dam. And this breaks the dam up right here. And then it drains and the headache goes away.
So the anatomical parts are above the clavicle? What was it?
I mean, you guys want me to go through it for a second?
Yes, please. Yeah.
All right. So you get your fingers together and you're right above the clavicle. And it's like I said, it's very light pressure. And you're just going back and forth or in little circles. And you can change the frequency of fast and slow. There's about 50 motions, back and forth or circles. It's just above the clavicle. See where my fingers are.
All four fingers.
All four fingers, yeah. And it's very light pressure. It's hard to get the pressure right because you think it's light enough, but it's not. Remember, just rest a quarter on your arm and you understand how light the pressure is. Quarter nickel, yeah. What weighs more, quarter or nickel? Don't do a half dollar. Don't do a dime. Okay, that one. Then the next one is you get your fingers kind of like this, and you go in little circles right on that lymph node right there. You know that lymph node area? Again, very light pressure. 50 times. You can go kind of go back and forth if you like. Don't make a big deal about whether it's clockwise or counterclockwise. For God's sakes, just like the dry skin brush, just do it. Just do it. Yeah, keep chinning normal. And so that's the second one. The third one I call Mr. Spock Ears. Get your hands like this. Get your hands up over your ears like that. Thumbs can be against the back of the neck or out. And then again, that same light pressure. You go up and down over the ears. You do Mr. This is also the Nanu Nanu, wasn't it? Wasn't this a Robin Williams?
So you're
was this the Nanu Nanu? Yes, it was the Nanu. So you do a Nanu Nanu ears.
Mostly with your fingers or palms as well?
The whole thing. Light pressure. Okay. 50 of those.
When do we get
Pun?
Pop.
Well, we're not doing 50. I'm breezing through it really fast.
But at what point would you expect to pop?
Oh, I get on the first one sometimes.
Oh, okay.
And my head, I already feel a change. I could feel some water draining right here. Right there. And then you go around the back. And I'll have to turn around for this. Around the occiput. And you want to lean back into it so the neck can relax. And 4 fingers on each side of the neck right here. See? There. Just under the skull. And you can do little circular motions or downward right there. I had a 12-year-old at UCSF. She had stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. And she had been misdiagnosed 3 or 4 times. And these people were from East Africa. And the parents, she was fighting to be alive. And she had boils in the back of her neck. It was so gross. And she ended up dying, but that's a sad story I want to go into right now. Me and my office manager drove all the way up there to treat her. And the doctors said my multivitamin had too much iron in it. And she died within 2 weeks. They were feeding her the Ensure.
Yeah, Ensure.
They were feeding her Ensure, sugar and chemicals, basically.
So sad.
Yeah, I came in with my righteous liquid vitamins and, you know, whole food stuff, and they poo-pooed it, and then she died. They're just idiots in medicine. Yeah. So right there, 50 of those. Then you go back to Mr. Spock Ears. Sound effects not included. Mr. Spock Ears. Then back. So you just repeat, and you go back to the. So it's 7 motions. The one in the back you only do once. The other 3 you do twice. You go back to the lymph node.
And what is this series called?
Manual lymphatic drainage for the head. And her name is Heather Whipple, is the woman's name. It's on my YouTube channel. Heather Whipple. I've had it on there about 6 years now. Right there. And then you go back to the clavicle. And she has 1 for the arms, 1 for the legs, 2 for the abdomen, 1 for the ears, and 1 for the head. So, you know, I tell people, if you got those portal veins are all clogged up, do the manual lymphatic, 1 for the abdomen. You got varicose veins, do the leg one. It costs you $0. Just what Big Brother doesn't want.
Exactly.
They don't want you costing $0. Exactly. They want a big fat bill. Yeah, new data just came out. The United States spends more on urgent care than any other country in the world, and we have the worst outcome.
I just realized Big Brother's name is Bill.
Why?
Bill?
Because it's constantly billing us.
Oh, wow.
I like that. So and as he gets older, his name is Billius. I always thought Uncle Billius.
If you were on the Gong Show, she'd have the little hook, right?
No. I'm funny. Yes, you are. Get everybody laughing. Look. It's true, right?
I never heard that one before. Big Brother should be called Bill. Or Sal, for salary.
That's Uncle Sal.
Uncle Sal and Big Bill.
For sure.
Okay. Does anybody feel any different?
Yeah.
My head feels lighter, literally. Yeah. But I'm going to bong it in about a half hour, so then I'll just fill it back up.
Keep it real.
I was keeping it real.
Yeah. Love it.
James, did you have a comment over there? I thought you had something brewing up over there. I'm turning off the recorder. Goodbye, folks. That was a great talk.